Welcome to Easy Eats. My name is Chef Yves, and we're here in the Greener Villages garden today to talk with Matt McPherson from McPherson's Natural Bee Apiary. He's going to come in and we're going to look at my bees today. I've got a few questions to ask Matt about bees because one of my hives isn't doing so hot, and I want to get some of your expertise. And then while we're doing that, we may as well learn a little bit more about bees.
I'll see what I can do.
Right on. So we're going to get ready here, and then after that we'll get going. So Matt, how long have you had the beehives or the apiary?
We are going on about 5 years now.
Nice. So about the same time that I started here, which is nice. And ups and downs, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I don't had one gentleman tell me that you don't have livestock unless you have dead stock, and that is very true with bees.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're not the easiest herd, I guess, to take care of. I'm always learning and mixing. So, what got you into bees?
We started about 5 years ago. We wanted to explore the idea of being self-sufficient on our apiary, I guess, or on our farm at the time. Now turned apiary. And then as we got looking into it, it just became more of a passion for myself, and that grew to, having more hives. Hives are very expensive, so that flipped into, how can we afford to pay for these hives? So
no, absolutely.
We decided that we would sell some products to help offset the cost of those, and have had good success and great welcoming into the New Brunswick market on that. So.
We were looking for a new pollinator project here, and I had a little bit of experience. My father used to keep bees. It was a hobby of his. So I used to go in and help him. Not as much as my little brother did, but I went in and I really liked it. So when we had this idea, it was kind of a nice way to relive my youth and kind of play into something that I was interested, that turned into, like you said, it's a passion, and it saved my sanity during the pandemic, I'll tell you that much.
Honestly, I've had a lot of people that I know of that have come back from either military missions or post-traumatic stress disorders, that just having bees to take care of and to be able, or to have to get out and be involved with, has helped them a lot. So.
Well, I mean, because you can't be excited, you need to be calm. They kind of feed off your energy, right?
Yep.
So
yeah.
You have no choice but to just kind of relax and do what you got to do.
Yep.
All right, so let's go and say hello to the girls.
Sounds good.
So what we're going to do now is we're just going to pull the top cover off and take a look at the bees. So here we go. There we are. We'll put that down right like that. And I've got the queen excluder on, and that's because I did have a honey super on this, but they weren't producing and as much as they weren't producing at all. So I figured there's no need to keep that on, but I just didn't take the excluder off, but I will today, I imagine. So that's going to give that a little bit more smoke, and then we're just going to take a look. Typically what I do is I always kind of clean up the burr comb. Burr comb is just any kind of comb that they use to seal or kind of make the hive their own.
And they will put it anywhere. If you give them any amount of space at all, they'll build something there.
Well, that's it. They use it to kind of seal the wind out, and it's a kind of an insulation for them, right? It's a multi-purpose. Then if you wanted to come over here, Matt,
sure.
And just kind of, and then we'll pull. I never pull this frame out. I always try to pull the second or third one out.
Absolutely. So if anybody's watching or wondering why, inside of a bee box like this is a Langstroth hive. There's about 10 frames in it. Those outer frames are typically what they store honey on. So if you pull from those outer frames, you're less likely to get any contact with the queen. So you're not going to squish her, you're not going to roll her as you pull it out or something like that. And priority number one is to keep her alive, keep her happy and healthy, because you don't want a queenless hive. No,
absolutely not. So what we're looking at right now here is just a lot of brood honey. And then there's
a little bit of brood right here,
a little bit coming on there, but again, they tend to build differently. I guess we're kind of man-handling or trying to teach them how to build into a square box, but in nature, they build it round, right?
They build in just about any shape, to be honest, depending on
what they can.
Patterns in the magnetic field and things. I've heard different theories on, and wind or airflow. They're very good. They'll make S-shaped patterns to pull air through the hive in certain ways. And So yeah, we are definitely trying to teach them to build straight, which is not something that they normally do.
And they don't like doing most of the time. So what I end up having to do is kind of fix stuff for them every once in a while.
Yep.
And kind of push them where they want to, where I'd like to have them. But what they do is they kind of put honey on the outer frame, and then they build their brood kind of in the middle. So it's like always a semicircle, and some of these are starting to fall apart here on me. But yeah, there's a little bit of brood. There's a little bit
of brood, yeah.
here, but she's not, and this is what I was worried about, is she's not as strong as she could be, I guess. Finding the queen, how hard or easy is it? Because half the time,
if you really,
I don't see her,
yeah.
but I don't really look for her all that hard, except for in the spring.
Yeah, typically what I do, we have so many hives on our apiary that I tend to just look for eggs. Depending on how or the placement of those eggs, if they're straight up and down, it's usually within the last day or so that she's been there. If they're kind of slanted a little bit, then that means that she was in there with the last 2 or 3 days. And if it's falling all the way flat, maybe just starting to get hatched, it's about 3 days old or 4. So I typically gauge that to see where she's at or what she's doing.
Well, that's it. And this one here, it looks like
that's a lot of honey there as well. Yeah,
it is. I think we're in the top box, so I'm thinking that the brood is probably lower.
Yeah.
Underneath.
So let's put these 2 back in, and we'll take that top box off.
Perfect. So again, we're going to put these back where we found them because they've got a pattern to it, and we really don't want to disrupt their the way they build stuff.
That's right. They know where they put it, and we don't want to move it on them.
No. Thank you, sir. And again, what I will do here probably in the spring is probably switch this one out and put and kind of do a little bit of maintenance, which I kind of have to do every spring.
Now, I learned this trick from a gentleman who taught me. I don't know if you do it or not, but what I've done here behind the scenes is kind of I've aligned the outer cover and then the inner cover.
Okay.
And so when we take this box off, we'll set it right on top of here. And the reason being is if you just take that box off and you set it over here in the grass, if by chance the queen's in there and she walks out and you pick it up, she's gone.
That's it. Yeah, no, absolutely. No,
So,
I always kind of, I watch and I'm gentle, and I put it on the inner cover.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess there's the question is, how often should you be in and out of your hives?
I go in them at least, especially in the peak spring and the summertime, at least once a week, every 7 to 10 days. The reason for that is they can actually create a queen within those 7 to 10 days. So if they're making another queen and they're getting ready to take off, by the time it's capped, if you come back then, you're too late. They're already getting ready to move on to another home. So
Absolutely, yeah. No, usually, yeah, that's usually between May and late June.
Yeah.
And then usually July, August, I kind of don't really go right down into them. I kind of take a peek.
Yep.
And I don't want to disturb what's going on if everything is healthy. I just gauge their health on the amount of honey I get from my supers. So Matt, there's different kind of bees. Like we're working with honeybees, and honeybees, there's different varieties of honeybees as well, right?
Yep.
So I know that mine are Italian.
They look it, yeah. There are all kinds. More in recent years around our area, we've had a lot of popularity with Buckfast bees. They're a great bee that has been bred to kind of grow up really fast or fill up a hive really fast in the spring, which means, of course, more honey. They tend seemingly to do okay in our winters, a little bit better in our winters than, say, like an Italian
and
or
their
something.
temperament's a lot nicer,
Yes,
isn't it? So,
yeah, they definitely have a great temperament to work with. And there's German bees, there's Russian bees, there's all kinds of them, yeah.
welcome back to Easy Eats. We're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to explore where we get our food, and we're going to say hi to my girls here, the honeybees. And I'm here again with Matt McPherson, expert beekeeper, or we're not all experts. He knows a little bit more than me, so to me, Matt's an expert. So, and he's helping me. I've had a little bit of worry about my hive, so I kind of invited him to talk about bees and to kind of look at the hive and give me a little bit of pointers and kind of some tidbits. But we were talking about these bees and different types, but I know there's different wild bees and stuff like that, but do you know These are the only ones that we've domesticated, eh?
We've domesticated them in a sense that we can get a resource out of them, but I do know of certain individuals or certain companies that have domesticated or will work with bumblebees as well. And that reason there is that honeybees can't pollinate all of those different foods depending on the shape of the flower and things. So bumblebees tend to have a better way of doing it for certain vegetables or fruits.
Okay, so they're basically using the bumblebees as pollinators. We're not getting the honey from them.
Yeah.
So these that's it. Is bees are pollinators.
Yes.
These are the ones that give us the food.
Yeah. These are the girls that give us the honey, hence the name honeybee. Yeah.
We're talking about honey and stuff, but Matt, you do a lot more than just honey. We've got this wax we were talking about and all that stuff. You guys have taken that and explored kind of tip to tail of the hive, right? So
we have, yeah.
What other things do you guys do?
So we do a lot of lotions, we do lip balms, beard products. Beeswax itself is a great cosmetic additive. It's not something that you would want to make an entire lotion out of because it'd be very hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
But blending it in with those olive oils, coconut oils, and different things that are proven to be great for skin and great for hair, it gives it the ability to kind of harden up into a bit of a thicker type of a lotion rather than just having that oily feel to it. It's got a great just overall benefit to your skin and to be able to, I know for us, we find that it really helps the lotion to seal and get that feel on your skin so that way your body can actually take in a lot of those oils and fats that it needs.
There's other applications, like there's the cosmetic version, but I know that sealing and things like that. I know when we go camping and things like that, we used to grab the wax from the hives, and my dad would seal up his our trapper's tent when we go out camping in the wintertime and things like that. That was a great way to seal things. There's sandwich bags or sandwich folds now with beeswax.
Taking out that plastic out of the grocery stores or the kids' lunch and replacing it with one of those beeswax wraps. Tools, if you've got a shovel or some axes or things that you're going to be storing over winter, just rubbing some beeswax on that seals off that metal. You don't have to paint it, don't have to do much to take care of it, and it's going to seal it for a bit of time anyway.
If you're looking at getting into it, when's a good time to go in and look at these girls and check them out?
Sure. So I try to get to mine in the morning. I find most of them have gone onto their flights to collect, or whether it's pollen or nectar or propolis or whatever they're going out for. So they've gone and done their flights. I've noticed a lot of times my girls leave in the morning and I see a big kind of influx of activity right around the 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then they may go out on a second flight or something for the day, and then I see a little bit of activity in the evening.
What do they go and collect? You said pollen?
So pollen is used to raise up the next generation of bees, so that's what they're getting their bee bread from. They're using the nectar and stuff as a blended into there. So nectar, of course, they turn into honey. They also collect propolis off of trees that they use for sealing the comb, or sorry, not sealing the comb, sealing the hive. So anytime that you get that really loud crack when you break open a hive, that's them having sealed it with propolis. The heat's kind of squished it down and made it harden. And then as you pull it off, you're breaking that propolis again. And they collect water. They use that as a way to fan up through the hive and different things. They're really an intelligent creature.
Well, that's it. And I mean, they speak through pheromones, and they also speak through dancing or communication as well. So,
have you seen a bee dance?
I have seen bees
dance.
Yeah,
they are amazing to see. The bee itself, for those at home, will create a circle pattern where she dances in the direction that the bees need to fly. So if she's kind of going off to the vertically left or something, she'll circle back around. She'll dance again, and she'll go backwards, but making a figure eight shape. And depending on the degrees that she's left or right tells the bees which way to fly based on where the sun is. And that then the length of the dance tells them how far away it is, and how vigorous the dance is, I'm told, tells exactly how much food is there and that's available. So they communicate so neat, I guess, or cool. They'll go through those stages in their life. So as soon as they hatch, they become a nurse bee. They're starting to take care of the brood again as they get older, until finally the last stage where they actually take off and begin to collect honey and things like that. Yeah.
Perfect. So, lifespan of a bee. Let's talk about that. Sure. I know that there's in different seasons they have a different span.
Yep. So in the peak summer, I believe it's right around 5 to 8 weeks. at the most. And you say, well, how do they live over winter? Well, she lays a different variety of bee in the winter.
A little furrier, right?
Well, a little furrier, but bigger. And she'll actually start laying those right around the August, September time frame.
So when we keep on referring to our bees as girls, because they're predominantly all female,
That's right,
but
yep.
we all know that you need a male species to make
That's
more
right.
bees. So what happens to those fellas in the winter time?
They get the boot right around usually October, November time frame. You'll see a lot of the girls starting to pull those guys out of the hive. Drones typically are there to mate with the queen, and then they will, sorry, I'm just watching them come out.
Yeah.
They're there to mate with the queen, and then they will serve, that's their purpose. They'll just consume honey from that point on. And as you know, it's hard enough to get a hive through the winter, let alone having a bunch of guys eating
who
all
have
your
no
stuff.
real job. Yeah, exactly. How do you get a queen bee other than buying one from a guy who's raising queens?
Sure. So you can buy one from a guy who's raising queens, but the bees are very intelligent, and they will actually create their own. If a hive, it's a little bit late in the year right now, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for that bee to actually go from egg to larva to hatched and then get mated and all of that kind of stuff. So if you do try to breed your own queen in the middle of, I guess we're in September now, by the time she's actually ready, it's too late.
It's too late,
It's getting
yeah.
into winter. But that being said, middle of the year or beginning of spring, especially as you start to see them making what we call a queen cell, so just down on the bottom of all of the frames, usually on the bottom, sometimes on the top, they'll make a very distinctive peanut-shaped cell,
Yeah.
and that cell is where the queen would lay an egg. They would feed it royal jelly, much like they feed royal jelly to all of the brood.
You said royal jelly, so I was aware that that's what you needed was the royal jelly, and I didn't know that they got everyone got a little bit. But
Yeah.
what's royal jelly, Matt?
So royal jelly is something that is distinctively made by the nurse bees, and that is a concoction, I guess you could say, like a protein powder that's
Yeah.
going to give them the boost. And that's if fed to all the bees, it's going to give them that boost as they grow. But specifically that queen bee will have that and develop all those organs.
All those organs, and
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Welcome back to Easy Eats with Chef Yves. I'm here again in Greener Villages Garden with Matt McPherson, owner and beekeeper at McPherson's Natural Bee Apiary.
That's us. Yeah.
And thanks again for joining us talking about bees. Again, we want to come back to that. I guess bees are... The reason why we have bees in the garden isn't just to fill Chef's hobby, but it's also to, they're great pollinators.
Absolutely.
So let's touch a little bit about that. Like, I mean,
Sure.
do you, you do honey, but do you rent your bees out?
I haven't gotten into renting my bees out yet. It may be a controversial topic. I'm
It
not
always
sure.
is,
It
yes, yeah.
You got a lot of guys putting a lot of hives all in one area, and I mean, there's things like disease and pests that get into them, bears and things like that. So I've tended to avoid it at the moment. Our government does offer great grants to kind of incentivize people to do that, and of course there is the payment associated with it. But I just feel like the health of my hives and all that offset negative items just are a little bit just not quite worth it yet.
No, absolutely. And I mean, but we do need those bees to
yeah,
pollinate
yeah.
those fields and stuff like that.
Yep.
So it's typically around here. It's mostly blueberry farmers that use
Yeah,
it. Eh?
a lot of blueberry farmers. I've heard of some cranberry guys that do it as well. And we try to help out too, like in our local area. I've got now 2 different bee yards, we call them.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Basically, I have my home bee yard with about 7 or 8 hives there, and I've got another bee yard that my sister and I have started working on, and that's got about 10 hives there. So they have some apple trees around their yards and things like that. So we're still trying to help local farmers, but we just want to be able to help them locally. The ones that we know, I guess.
Well, while we were in the hives, we were talking about we were talking about the royal nectar, and we were talking all that stuff, and you mentioned bee bread, and I meant to ask you, what is bee bread? Is it like what we think, like yeast fermented little pucks of bread?
Bread, yeah. Yeah, it's just raises right out of the comb, right?
Yeah.
No, it's a blend of, I believe, pollen and a nectar mixture, and they would store that right around the brood comb, and so they're going to use that as a resource to feed those young bees.
Okay, so it's like the first thing, so I guess kind of
Yeah.
like mother's milk, I guess,
Mother's
for a
milk,
lack
yeah,
of
yeah,
better term.
high in protein, yeah. The royal jelly would be the main kickoff, and then getting into that bee bread as a food source there. Yeah.
Perfect. And I mean, bees are amazing. I mean, I know that honey is known as an antiseptic. I know that it doesn't go bad.
It doesn't go bad, which I see you've got some older stuff here with no concern, right?
With no concern, and what's really cool is that we've kind of done this as kind of a fun experiment. I've always wanted to know, because every year honey tastes different. It comes from the same hive, but it's different bees and it's different flowers.
Yep.
So
yeah, and depending on where you get it, all across New Brunswick, there's pollinators or beekeepers that are pulling honey in the spring, in the summer, in the fall, and depending on where their bees are, depending on what crop they're pollinating and things, it's going to taste completely different.
We were talking about pollinating and stuff like that. So we didn't touch on that. How far is their yard? Like, how far do they migrate out to go and get honey?
So depending on the food resources available, if there's a lot really close, they're going to hit those every time. But if they have to, they'll go up to 5 kilometers.
5 kilometers, yeah. Well, my bees in my garden our garden don't have very far to go.
Yeah.
But again, that's great to know that we're helping up to 5 kilometers out.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, and that's, I guess, another thing to be mindful of, and your neighbors and things like that, because they are going to be traveling. But at the same time, getting to know your neighbors and knowing what they're putting on their gardens. If people are spraying, if you've got some apple orchards nearby, it helps to have that relationship with the farmer to say, okay, you have to do something to your crops. Okay, we understand. Can you give us some notice so we can move or do things like that, right?
That's right, and I never even thought of that. Yeah, pesticides can definitely affect what's being sprayed and how it's being sprayed and things like that. So yeah, you're right, getting a relationship with the farmers or everyone out there to... That's fantastic. I know that during the pandemic, I had read it. I got right into my bees, so I was reading articles, and I had read a spot in the UK where they were discouraging people from getting any more bees because it became the hobby of the pandemic, and they were saying that every 5 households had a hive, which meant that the bees were dying because they didn't have enough honey or enough flowers to go around.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is so...
Yeah, and I know for us, we've got a neighbor who's got some hives right next to us, and that's why we've split to 2 yards. So I keep about 10 at our property. He has about 10, if I remember correctly. So we're getting about 20. I think around 25 is your kind of max to have a good sustainable population within that 5 kilometer radius. So we try to limit and work with him on those. And likewise, you were saying about the beekeeping becoming that hobby of, COVID or whatever. Like, I know a lot of people got chickens, a lot of people got into this farming thing. And I always stress to new people that are getting into it, if I can, give them any words of wisdom. It's, get a couple of hives if you want to do it, because if you lose a queen, you're gonna have that problem of, okay, now they either have to make a queen, or my hive's just gonna die because it doesn't have it or something. But also get involved in a local organization, because we have our Central Beekeepers Association here. We've got the New Brunswick Beekeepers Association. They're such great resources because they have that older stock of beekeepers that have been doing it for decades.
Well, that's it. Everyone needs kind of a mentor.
Exactly.
And I'm the same thing. Is you've got questions, you always ask a different beekeeper. I'll shout it to you. I'll call my little brother who we've done bees together. I'll talk to, again, the Central Beekeepers Association, who are the ones who helped us get this hive started. So which is great. And now that it was the one hive, and then we just kind of picked up from there. I wish I could make more meetings, but again, life is just...
It's hard, right?
Busy. We're busy like our bees a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Matt, for coming in, taking a peek at my hives, giving me a little bit of advice. Because, like I said, like we were just saying that, every once in a while you kind of want to get a different eye into that hive, because a lot of times you get worried for nothing. And then just having another set of eyes in there can definitely kind of give you an insight. So thank you so much for coming in, taking a peek, talking about bees. Sure. They're great pollinators. They make beautiful honey. Exactly. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.